Hi, everybody. This is Joanne Eisen with Reaching Unlimited, and I am so happy that you came to join us for another week. This is Colleen Bryum. Did I get that right? Sorry, it was supposed to come out and it got stuck. And I would love to welcome her to our show today. So, Colleen, thank you so much for joining me today. And can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you. And I feel heartily and warmly welcome. Thank you, Joanne. Joanne and I decided to get together and talk today in large part because of my current practice in the world, which is as an evidential medium. And I'm reluctant to claim the mantle of teacher of evidential mediumship because my teachers are so much more evolved in their mediumship than I am. But it turns out actually I'm doing a little bit of teaching on Facebook, on a Facebook page called Evidential Mediumship and through other venues. But my focus is very much on evidential mediumship. My past is in technology. I was an executive in a number of different technology companies in the Pacific Northwest in the kind of juicy 25 years to do that work. And now I get to follow my heart.
So no wonder you knew so well what was happening prior to us going live.
We had a little wobble.
No, explain this to me. Long story. We'll talk about that later. That's not as important as evidential mediumship. We had the most amazing conversation the other day about evidential mediumship, about having evidence versus having the story, right? Or the heartfelt messages. Yeah. So this is a great subject to talk about because I know there's a lot of people that are on both sides of the fence of that subject. Can you tell people a little bit about what evidential mediumship is?
We'll need to talk about what it is and a little bit about what it isn't. Okay. I want to be sure at the outset not to lead people to believe that I am suggesting we operate from a checklist of facts. Yes. Mm-hmm. That tends to be distancing, and it creates distance in the experience between the medium and the sitter or the person who's receiving the message, and we don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. So without appearing to recommend that, evidential mediumship is connecting with a loved one in the other realm, which is one way of expressing that, mm-hmm. and bringing through specific information about their lives that is recognizable to the sitter. And if so, for example, on the what it's not side, if a medium says, "Oh, I have your grandmother here. She really loved you. She liked to bake cookies. She's supporting you from the other side." That's not an evidential reading.
Yes, I love that. Yes.
Not an evidential reading. An evidential reading would be more along the lines of, I can't even pretend to read without starting to read. I have a woman here. She is, she's very sinewy and wiry, and I can see the veins standing on the back of her hands, and I can see that her clavicles are very prominent, and she has iron gray hair that she wears pulled back, kind of like I have mine right now. And I am aware that she lives in a very urban area. She lives in a brick building. It's okay. So, right, we're off in the reading now. Mm-hmm. No, it's a brick building, and I can describe the interior of the building. Mm-hmm. See, I can't even fake read with glasses on. If I'm even going to fake read, I got to take my glasses off. Anyway, yeah. So evidence is bringing forward specific details about where the person lived, the environment they lived in, the furniture in their house, the wallpaper on their walls, their character. Were they warm and loving, or were they more withdrawn and rigid? What their hobbies were, what they did for a living, how many children they have, how they passed. A lot of people bring through information about how what the relationship was to the person you're reading for. Is it grandmother? Is it the stepmother? Is it? So, am I overdoing it here?
No, because it's an important thing. But what I'm thinking about is you made a really good point, because one thing that people read differently, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But you don't want to, as you said, go in with a checklist and make sure that let me rephrase that question, because it's supposed to be a question. What happens when somebody's going in with just a checklist? I have this, I have to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. What would be wrong with that?
The mechanics of that are great, and mediums are working all the time. I'm still working to get the mechanics of that kind of evidence straight.
Mm-hmm.
There are a couple of problems with it. Number one, mediums I will say that mediums should remember that we're meeting people on the other side. These are people. They're not entities. They're not energies. They're not father energy. They're people. It's Joe Blow from, wherever. It's a real, alive, honest to goodness person.
Mm-hmm.
And when in life would you walk up to someone and say, name, where were you born, age, how did you die, and your relationship to, and, any military history? We don't interact with people that way.
Right.
So it's, and I'll say more about why that's a problem when communicating with disincarnate souls, people on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
For the sitter, the person you're reading for, they know all that. Mm-hmm. And it's comforting to know that the medium has those arrows in her quiver, mm-hmm. that she can say, produce the evidence. That's comforting, and it's important, and we need to do that. But if it's all you do, if that is all that is done is to check the checklist, then it doesn't create the space in the reading for the kind of healing we hope to accomplish with mediumship. So if I surrender myself to the person I'm meeting, mm-hmm. and just take what they give me, describe their appearance, this is how I work, and this is just me, and it could be done a lot of different ways, but describe their appearance, describe how they feel to me. What is their character? Mm-hmm. And then I want the person I'm telling this to go, yeah, well, yeah. Oh, no, that's not right. You're off there. Okay, let's see why I was off. Go back in. Okay, it wasn't that she wore braids. It's that she braided your hair when you were little. I got to put that off. So I go back in, and being open and following the lead of what we call the spirit communicator creates the opportunity for them to tell the story they want to tell.
Yes.
They're going to always, there's a reason why they've shown up. They want to communicate their story. Sometimes it's heavy duty stuff. Mm-hmm. I get a lot of, in my practice, for whatever reason, and it's a more esoteric conversation, but I have a lot of spirit communicators come through who were predators in life, who were violent predators. I won't enumerate because it's even to list it's unpleasant. Mm-hmm. And they, for example, want to list their wrongs. They seem to want to, there's an element of atonement, which they never would have done in life, right? Mm-hmm. They will say to me, a stranger, I did this, I did that, I did the other. Now, sorry, I'm really getting ahead of myself. I mean, I also, as a medium, want to make sure that the person I'm reading for wants this person to come in. They may be going, oh no, I don't want to hear from the guy. I'm glad he's gone. Let's keep him over there. Fine. Right. Absolutely. Sitter's prerogative. But when the person I'm reading for is open to that, then there can be some pretty transformative things that happen in those kinds of sittings. So that's me following. I don't get any of that if I sit here with a list and make sure I'm checking off the list. And also it's off-putting, I think. It's like, oh, okay, well, that's the hoop I have to jump through, and how long are they going to be here with me to have this conversation? Just feels to me like we need to be more tuned in to what they want to say, mm-hmm. while demonstrating that we really have somebody, that by having this evidence that comes through. So
you brought in like 10 questions to me on that, because so many things I could talk about that. But the interesting thing is, do you believe that the person that comes through, you said that, the person that comes through is giving you the message you need at the time, but you also talked about how, as a sitter, somebody who's come to see you as a medium may not want to hear what is being said. So how do you personally, in the way that you work, how do you bridge that? Because I've had that too, where I've had somebody who was bringing a message and the person didn't want to really hear what was being said. And how do you work through that?
I don't work through it. I respect what the person in front of me says. If they recoil, I can feel them recoil. When they begin to recognize somebody who's here who they don't want to talk to. I try to I might become so absorbed I don't notice right away, but I'll eventually feel them going like this. And I'll tune, if I have failed to be tuned in the whole time, I'll tune back in, and you don't want to hear from this person. No, we're done. Off you go. Next. Because there's always someone else who will step forward.
That was my question. Is there somebody?
Oh, no. We never. We're in the show. The living people trump. You should forgive that word. We carry the day. We carry the day. This is our time to grow and heal and make choices. Our needs come before those of the spirit world always.
Now, when you find that happens, does that message come through in a different way, or is it a different message?
I'm not sure what you mean. Which message comes home?
When we come to see, if somebody comes to see a medium, they're coming and there's a need for that sitter for that time period. So the first person that comes through had something they wanted to share that didn't want to be heard. Would imply that was a message that needed to be heard for healing or whatever was going on at that time, I would assume. And so if you have communicator number 2 that comes in, are they bringing that message in, but in a different way? So that message that's of the need is still coming through, or do we just go to another need?
I think that is a good question, but it might be posing a level of narrowness and specificity and sort of binariness that doesn't exist in the spirit realm. So put another way, if I miss the opportunity to go into therapy because I'm too anxious and I'm not ready to disclose what I've been through, I will have that opportunity maybe down the road.
Okay.
So if the person sitting across from the medium doesn't want to hear from some miserable person who ruined their lives, they're entitled to say, no, thank you. And they don't need to have, that's their choice. They will get their healing in other ways. It doesn't need to be in this metaphysical, across the bridge of the metaphysical world into the physical world. They'll get it another way. And the second spirit communicator is probably going to be talking about something completely different. Right?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. I've actually had that where it is completely different. But I loved how you answered that. And one of the things I love about Colleen, you guys, is her vocabulary and the way that she speaks is so elegant and amazing. So I could just talk to her for days. It's amazing. The other thing that you brought up that I think is really interesting and could help a lot of people is when you are saying something and the person can't understand what you're saying, they can't take it, or they're not understanding it the way that you're saying it, and you have to go, oh, let me go back and recheck. Talk a little bit about what's actually happening in that process.
Well, this is what's so tricky about being an evidential medium is that, this is my instrument here. This is what I have to work with, mostly this in my case, because I live inside my head. And our minds intrude. If I see, for example, I think the example I used was that the grandma wore braids, and my mind is, when I see those braids, for whatever reason, I will be reading quickly and seeing things and telling the person that I'm reading for what I'm seeing, and I'm going a little too fast. And if I slow down and create the space for what I am seeing to resonate a little bit, put off a vibe, communicate more than what it appears to be, then my readings will be more accurate. But if I see braids, my first go-to is going to be to say, oh, she wore braids. And then that's why it's so helpful when the person I'm reading for says, no, Grandma didn't wear braids. Oh, thank you. let me go back. And I'll go back and sit with the braids for a second or two and become aware that the braids are actually referencing someone. So it's going back to the evidence that was incorrect and being present with it. You know, it's that RKO dog. You know, you kind of turn your head and go, what? Let me understand this in a different way. Sometimes, I don't know. I'll say, I remember one time I was reading for a woman, and I had a friend of hers who passed, and this friend worked on a cruise ship, and I had her, I had the friend, I had the appearance, I had her working on a cruise ship, and all of a sudden I saw a map of the United States, which I think is one of the rare times this happened for me. I actually saw a map of the United States with the state of Oklahoma highlighted, and I said, oh, she was from Oklahoma. And my sister, no. She lived in Oklahoma. No. And I'm trying in my head, right? But Oklahoma. I know Oklahoma is really, really important here. No, there's no connection to Oklahoma. Shoot. Okay, well, and I remember saying, well, let's put a pin in it. And then we went on and did the rest of the reading. And toward the end of the reading, the person I was reading for remembered that her friend, what she did on the cruise ship was she was a performer. And at the time that she passed, or close to the time she passed, she was performing Oklahoma. That was the play they were putting on. So I didn't have that at all. I had Oklahoma, right? So sometimes, and that was a laugh, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes we'll get evidence. Sometimes I call it buried evidence. Like the spirit communicator will give us something, and the person we're reading for will go, no. And I go back to it and I'm like, yeah. No, and that's like, well, I'm going to leave that with you and just, we'll set it aside, but maybe remember that maybe remember that. And so what the spirit world will do is give a piece of evidence that the person we're reading for, who we call the sitter, will uncover weeks, months down the road when they're talking to Aunt Betty, and Aunt Betty will say, oh yeah, Uncle Stu played pool, right? And the thing that I had surfaced was a pool cue. That kind of thing happens. I call it buried evidence because it surfaces later.
And that happens quite often. And it's something that, you know, it's something that you just have to accept. But the thing that happens to me too is if I can just, which happens often, I'm sure to you, when you just relax into it, then it makes sense because the communicator, the person that you are communicating with, is working through your filter. Exactly. It's not working. So talk a little bit about how a communicator is working with the medium.
Well, there are a couple of ways to talk about that. One is pretty woo-woo. So for those of you with a low woo-woo tolerance, I apologize.
They're not woo.
They're not in the room. Okay.
They're not skittish if they're watching this show.
I need to talk about the chakra system a little bit. That's about as woo-woo as it gets. And oh, by the way, 20 years ago, I was like chakra system, schmakra system. That's nonsense, Turns out. Any rate, as mediums, we work with what we call the clairs. We work with our clairsentience, clairvoyance, clairaudience, which is clear hearing. Clairsentience is clear feeling. We work with clairgustance, which is clear tasting, clairalience, which is clear smelling, claircognizance, which is just this knowing. It just drops into our heads and we know it. And who did I leave out? Clairvoyance, the heavy hitter. Everybody knows about clairvoyance, which is clear seeing. Yeah. Now, ideally, when I'm talking to a spirit communicator or a loved one on the other side, I'm no more aware of which clair I'm using than I am right now when I'm talking to you guys. I'm not sitting here going, right now I'm using my voice, right now I'm just communicating. But as we develop our mediumship, we tend to be more reliant we might start out with a really strong clairvoyance, so we're just seeing everything. Or we might start out, a lot of people start out with really strong clairaudience. They hear the spirit communicators talking to them, and so they're like translating what they're hearing, and so on. So the way I work predominantly is I work with claircognizance, which stuff just drops into my head.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, parenthetically, we can talk about the distinction between psychic work and mediumship work.
Mm-hmm.
But I work with claircognizance, clairvoyance, and clairsentience, clear feeling. So that's how I communicate with the spirit world, dropping into those senses. Like when I get stuck in a reading, I'll drop down into my third chakra, which is the seat of clairsentience, clear feeling, and try to, you know, just create space for feeling what's going on. Sort of like when you walk in a room or maybe you walk into a dinner party. I always kind of scan the room a little bit, right? Who's in here? Who's a good witch? Who's a bad witch? Who's friendly and nice to me? And, you know, my mileage varies greatly on how successful I am with that in the physical world. I think I might be better at it with the spirit world than in the physical world. But it's that thing where you walk in the room and go, okay, who's who, what's going on? That's clairsentience. And that's how I talk to the spirit world. Did I answer the question?
You did, and more questions are flowing. But what I want to go back to, and something that we didn't hit, was how did you get started in this?
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, so first of all, this is just my story, and I'll tell you, but I also want to talk about how people come to mediumship, because I'm just one little old person. I'll address that first. I came to this, it was very much in my family. My great grandmother read cards for a living at one point. She needed the money and she could do it, and read playing cards, not tarot, regular playing cards, which is what I learned to read years later. My great aunt and cousins and mother also were very clairvoyant and prescient, psychic, but there was a strong religious thing that happened in the family, and it had to be recast in terminology that was acceptable to the religious experience of the family. And as a result of all that, I was just frightened by it, because suddenly now we're talking about devils and things. I don't know. I want out. I don't want to do this. And so I prayed for all this stuff to go away. And it did. Absolutely gone. Mostly. But it was percolating below the surface. And so in my 20s and 30s, I would have these experiences where I didn't know what to call them. I didn't know where it came from or what it was, where I'd plop down next to somebody and suddenly I would just know stuff. And I'd say, like one time I was having coffee in a coffee shop with a really good friend of mine, and I found myself kind of looking out the window and saying, did you have a friend in Australia who died? Yeah. Did you die on a tractor? Yeah, you know. And I went on to know, I'm trying to think now if there's any way this story can, I came to know that this man had been drinking and that this was connected with his passing. And that was information only 2 people had. And I didn't know what that was. We had the conversation, then we went back to our eggs and potatoes and toast. That happened a lot. And then after my son was born, things really opened up, and I had spirit. I had what I thought at the time I would characterize as spirits were hanging around. What I understand now is that I was just open and aware of the presence of spirit. And but I couldn't tell who it was or what they wanted, but it was just, it made me crazy. So then I started studying and found my way to today. But can I also just say, while we're talking about how'd you get started with this nutty stuff? There are some of the ways. I mean, people do come into it through family lineage. That's, plenty of stories like that. Loss of a loved one is a huge point of entree into mediumship. Tragic loss is very, very common. When I poll mediums in our evidential mediumship group on Facebook, it's something like 20% came to mediumship through the loss of a loved one. Another way people come to mediumship is through near-death experiences. Others are drawn in by curiosity. Like, this stuff is so interesting, I call psychics and mediums all the time. And it's that curiosity. What's her name? Eat, Pray, Love. Elizabeth Gilbert.
Uh-huh.
The first to put her finger on this. She did this speech, I think, at some Oprah event where she said, everybody's being told to follow their bliss, and I don't know what that means, and I don't know that many people who know what it means. And what I've discovered is that what we're really supposed to follow is our curiosity.
Yes. I love that. Yes.
Elizabeth Gilbert. So a lot of people come into evolve into mediumship or psychic work through curiosity.
I think that's that for me, it was more, I think, traumatic experiences that brought me, not the actual loss of somebody, but just the trauma of life and not liking the way it was going. Yeah. I never wanted to go into mediumship. I wanted to go hide in the closet and let everybody else do it. I have a friend that I would tell that to all the time. You go do your thing. I'm going to go hide in the closet. Don't tell me. I don't want to know. I'm not going to look. I don't even care.
That would be the ostrich approach.
I was good at ostrich. That sand and I and the head, we had it made.
Yeah, the problem is the spirit world knows you're in the closet, and they'll come. Hello.
Well, that's the funniest thing about it is they're in the closet with you. So
exactly. They're in the closet.
I don't know what I thought I was hiding from in the closet, but it made me feel secure, so I was good. So the interesting thing about it, though, is when you're talking about it, and you've talked about how basically you would read for somebody and how spirit would work for you, how would somebody who was actually a sitter, how would they know whether that medium was really connecting to their loved ones and they're not being kind of given a sack full of nothing?
Evidence.
Just the evidence.
It all comes back to the evidence. So let's see. Again, it has to be strongly evidential. It can't just be, your mother's on the other side, right? No, it's your dad who's on. This must be your grandmother. Okay, I've got your grandmother. Don't guess your way to that.
Right.
So your grandmother. So, boy, your grandmother really loved you. Looked you in the eye. Grandma's kind of a cow. Oh, wait a second. She really loves you now. She just wasn't able to express her love to you in the way she wanted to. Isn't that right? Sitter goes, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now we're building up a reading. And I know that sounds really catty and icky. And I don't know a lot of I don't know. I know those mediums are out there.
Yeah, they are.
That's not an evidential reading. An evidential reading should have explicit description of person and spirit. It should have their character, their nature, their temperament, their relationship with you. Was it an uncle, a brother, a cousin, a friend? And we're not perfect. If this stuff were easy, okay? I mean, I don't nail it.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I don't nail it. I get really, really close most of the time, but a lot of times you just faceplant. We mess up. But most of the time, 90+% of the time, our mediumship needs to be pretty spot on. And if it's not, if I for whatever reason mess up a reading, I'm not going to charge for that. I wouldn't charge for it.
Because we have off days.
Yeah, we all have off days.
Yeah, have off days.
And I may have other things, and who knows? I may have just it's a lesson in humility, which is rather more frequent than I think is necessary.
I've got a few.
Do we need to keep having these lessons?
Oh my gosh!
But my point is that most. I think my standard of integrity in the work is that if the reading is not of good quality, then the person shouldn't pay for it.
Right.
Otherwise, it's just caveat emptor. It's just buyer beware, and don't recommend that person to your friends if you don't have good reading. I'm trying to think. Well, I was going to say, how do you find a good medium? It's tricky. Ask questions. Ask your friends if they had a good reading. What sort of evidence did they bring through? Did you walk in and sit down and the medium said, who are you here to hear from?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, your son. You have a son in spirit, and he would have been a teenager. And they start asking questions, and
yeah.
Yeah.
I would say that I agree with that. And I think you probably get the feeling too that something's off or you're uncomfortable. And because the reason I asked you to do that again is because I've talked to a lot of people who have continued to see people that were stringing them along. And, that's just giving your power to somebody. It's not helping you or the person that's reading for you. So it really is important to make sure that you're getting evidence that would be unique to you, not evidence that is vague and could basically fill the shoe of anybody.
Yeah.
So I know that because a lot of the people that are on this channel with me are people that are in the woo-woo world. They're either psychic and they're thinking about mediumship, or they're mediums that are training, or they're mediums completely. So we have all kinds of the gamut there. What would you, I think, advise to somebody who's starting out? What would help you in the beginning of your journey?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking. I actually I was hoping that might come up, and I grabbed some things here. 25 years ago, it was not the case that there was an abundant tradition of literature on the subject of developing mediumship. But today there is. One of my go-to books, I want to make sure that wasn't reversed. Okay. is Janet Nohavek's Where Two Worlds Meet. I think this is good reading for everybody. Anybody who wants to have a reading, and anybody who wants to give a reading potentially. Janet, if you don't know her, is at the Journey Within Spiritualist Church in New Jersey, Pumpkin Lakes, New Jersey. And she started out as a Catholic nun, and she was a nun, and made her way into evidential mediumship as it is practiced in the Spiritualist Church. And this is just a really wise book. So I tell everyone to read two books. I tell them to read Where Two Worlds Meet. Whoa, I can't find the center of the camera. And Developing Mediumship, or anything else by Gordon Smith. Gordon Smith is who, in fact, that's how we met, was at Gordon Smith. Right. Gordon Smith is just, he's fantastic. Love him. And there are a couple other things out here. I'm kind of book happy today. This is a new book. Ooh, there we go. Kay Reynolds. Kay Reynolds is an AFC trained medium, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. Kay is she's also just lovely, and she has a tremendous amount of integrity and common sense. And this book, her book, The Evidential Medium, is very structured. She was a school teacher for like 25 or 30 years. Lesson plans and exercises and journal entries. And so if you're kind of that sort of person who would benefit from, or who likes that kind of structure, this book, The Evidential Medium, is the way to go, by Kay Reynolds. So the short answer is there are books, and those are three really good ones. There are also workshops. I mentioned a moment ago about Kay, that she is an AFC trained medium. AFC is our Hogwarts. It stands for Arthur Findlay College. And if you've never heard of Arthur Findlay College, Google it and go look at their the course list for AFC. And of course, pre-COVID, we trooped over to Stansted. It's in England. I went over to Stansted to do the thing there. Now it's online, which is really cool. Yeah, I know. But Arthur Findlay College is that's sort of the graduate school for mediumship. It's really, have you been to Stansted?
I have not. I was going to go last year, and I opted not to, and I'm still kicking myself on that.
In the future. But look, read the course list at Arthur Findlay College for your listeners or viewers, because it'll start to give you an idea, like, whoa, this is serious. And it's really quite demanding. You go for a week and you're just head spinning at the end of the week.
Mhm.
The Arthur Findlay College teachers are referred to as tutors in the English teaching tradition. The teachers are called tutors. So I may slip and say the AFC tutors are also sources of incredible training. So that would be people, should I list them? I mean, I can, Andy Bing and Chris Drew and Mavis Patilla, who's sort of the grand dame. Tony Stockwell is another famous tutor who teaches. Who else? Gordon Smith, of course.
Colin Bates.
Who?
Colin Bates.
Colin Bates.
Which is a heartfelt, wonderful human being.
Oh, fabulous. Len Probert is another one who's outstanding. Eileen Davies.
Eileen Davies, yes.
This is recorded so people can listen to it again and pull these names out, right?
Yes, it's being recorded.
Okay. So yeah, you guys can go to the websites for those teachers and see, you know, when they're going to be doing, and of course it's all online now, so very accessible, also very affordable.
Yes, very affordable, and very. I've worked with a few of the teachers, and they're very gifted, and they're very knowledgeable in what they do, and they're very kind, and they're very patient. Oh, they're very patient. Let me tell you.
Patient.
They're very patient with me. So yes, I would highly recommend checking that out. Hi, Susan. What do you think would be, what would be the most difficult thing that you've had to overcome in trusting your mediumship?
Well, that's the $64 million question.
I hope you have the answer.
It never ends. It never ends. You know, it's always Jen and is it still going to work when I turn to it today? I still feel that way. So I clearly, the development and learning never ends. The question about trust, I think, is intricately, intimately, inevitably intricated. No. There's another word I'm missing. It's all like this with our development. If we have wounds of, if we were preyed upon sexually as children, if we were beaten, emotionally abused, you know, the gamut of things that so many of us have, particularly in the mediumship community, there's a much higher preponderance of ACE, adverse childhood experiences in the mediumship community than the population at large. And all of that has to be really well on its way to healing. I think having a mindset about healing is helpful, certainly, rather than a mindset of, you know, I'm just going to say it, victimhood. You know, it's a thing. You know, we get attached to our wounds and become identified with them, and there's a kind of heroism in that as well. But the tension between the victimhood and the heroism, it gets in our way. I speak from personal experience. So we really have to do a lot of personal development work to be a good medium, to be a good anything, but definitely to be an ambassador between these two worlds. We need to have this thing as cleaned up as possible. And I'm not saying mine is all that in a bag of chips. It's not. I'm working on it every day. But the biggest impediment to better mediumship is the degree to which we have not completely and energetically and faithfully undertaken the personal healing that we have to do. And that's what affects trusting the spirit world. That's what gets in the way of receiving that really clear evidence. I
love being the ambassador. I love that we are the ambassador between this world and the spiritual world. I love that phrase. I feel like that's something that is an ongoing process. Like we talked the other day about how we could be doing a reading and the topic could trigger something in us that we have to go back and revisit. And that's okay to go back and revisit it.
Absolutely. I know, I remember the first time I was told by a teacher, a very early teacher I worked with, that some mediums would not take spirit communicators, as we call them, or loved ones, who had died by suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so shocked by that. And it was because, as it was explained to me, that there are mediums who have personal beliefs about death by suicide that take that, it's not a possibility for them. And some of those are religious beliefs, which are extremely unhelpful and don't promote healing, is the way that I would define unhelpful. But there are also other things. For example, if I am if I was treated violently as a child, beaten as a child, and I have a spirit communicator come through who was an abusive father, who hit his children, if I haven't really done all that work within me and worked with forgiveness and worked with understanding and deepened my compassion and insight and really immersed myself in, as Brian Bowles would say, that river of grace, I can't bring that father through for my sitter who may want to hear from him, who may very much want and need to hear from him. I have to, so this gets into some of the philosophy of mediumship, right? Which is that this is my philosophy, and I will give it to you unapologetically. There are no evil spirits.
I agree.
There are no evil spirits. And without, at this moment, getting into what is going on when people think they have evil spirits, they are having authentic experiences.
Yeah.
I don't diminish that. I know the experiences are authentic. And I am a geek. Oh, by the way, if you didn't get it from the technology executive thing, I'm a totally and I don't really have the mind for advanced math. I don't have the mind. I don't know what really about. I don't have the mind for advanced mathematics and quantum mechanics and quantum physics. But fortunately, there's a bunch of stuff about quantum physics that's available to us right now. And so all of my mediumship understanding is seen through the lens of quantum physics. So with that geeky message, leaving it aside and coming back to talking to this person, when we leave these bodies, we are immediately in the other realm. We're not in some purgatory parking lot. We're not trapped. We're not stuck. We didn't need little old Colleen Bryum to come by and rescue a trapped soul, because I think God's got this, right? The supreme source of all love and light. Is wired. So these souls, when we leave our bodies and we go over to the other side, we're in the light. Right. Whether there's work to do, stuff to learn, reasonable people can disagree, but we're in the light. So when these spirit communicators come back to me, to us, they are going through the effortful process of re-adorning themselves in the uncomfortable tight shoes and ill-fitting stinky garments and personality and habits and memories of who they were in life. If they beat their children, that's an incredible gesture of love for them to come back through. Some mediums say that they're lowering their vibration. Okay, that's fine. I think it misses some things to say that, but for me, they're re-inhabiting who they were in life in order to say to this daughter that they were so violent with, I did this. We did it.
I own it.
I own it. And whatever else comes out of the meeting. So no evil spirits. They're coming to us in the light. And I don't remember what the question was now.
Okay, because that was an important thing. And one of the things I want to say, two things. Susan, it's okay. We're not talking about being a medium or that you have to be a medium. We're just talking about the subject in general. So if you have any questions, please put it in the chat, because we're here to answer those as well. So thank you for coming, and maybe you'll learn that maybe you are a medium. So we'll leave that at that. So you brought up some really interesting things. And one of the things I want to say about that is one of the things that I've learned because I've traveled from being really religious, and this is really bad too, where I'm at now, where I'm talking to dead people and giving you a message, is that we don't really know until we pass what truly is on the other side. But mediums get those little glimpses as we are communicating with people from that side. And I do agree. I believe that there are people that are truly experiencing these dark, what they believe to be entities. But I love the way you said God knows better than that. God does better than that. And it's not, we're created perfect. We're created as a spark of a whole.
Mhm.
So how can there be all this other, like, I love how you said, I don't need Colleen to come and do this woo-woo juicy whatever
Let me
stuff.
tell you something, the world is in a world of hurt.
And I don't mean to put anybody down. This is not to put anybody down in what they do, because we're all at different places, and we've been called to do different things, and there's lessons to all of that. So this isn't putting anybody down who does clearing and all of those things. We're not, that isn't the point. The point is when you connect to the other side and you see when you're blending with them, the beauty and the perfectness of them, that they had come back to show themselves in their human form. That's a lot for them to do. And that means that they really care, because we're a soul family. And they're there to be our cheerleaders. They're there to be our helpers, to get us through. Why we chose this, I don't know. I'm still asking that question, but we chose to come here to have this experience. I do know why we came here. I was being sarcastic.
What the hell kind of a travel agent did I get on this deal? COVID? Really?
Why couldn't I have done it a century before? I don't know. It was no big things happening in that time period. No, I hear what you're saying, and that's really important to understand that. And I know everybody has their own beliefs. So, you're all here for your own journeys, just like we are. And that's what we're going to do, is go through that journey.
Amen.
And it's going to be different for everybody.
Yeah. Did you have questions from people, or are we muddling right on through? I didn't want
to. Usually people are asking questions. They're not asking questions today. I've been watching. But I do love that Marcia said that Colleen reminds me of Meryl Streep. Articulate and graceful. So
oh my gosh.
Marilyn's going to have a watch party. And immediately I just wanted to address, Susan, that, this isn't just if you're a medium that this is going to help you. This is kind of an all-encompassing about what mediumship is, and more so about the evidential part of it. And we had a conversation the other day about evidence, like I said at the beginning, versus the heartfelt. Every time that you're giving the evidence, though, it has to have a flow to it. And there is a meaning through everything that you're given. It's not that this is just random stuff that is coming out of the air. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, ideally, and when I'm doing my very best work, which I aspire to all the time, and I aspire, but when I'm doing my very best work, I'm aware that each piece of evidence actually contains a universe of information. I had a spirit communicator last night who was a young boy who died as a very young man in his early 20s, who kept referencing wearing a belt. And there was a lot going on there. I was like, okay, I got it. You're wearing jeans with a belt. Okay, what's the big deal? But he came back to it. And so I slowed down and I was present with the belt. And I realized that there were a couple reasons he wanted to talk about this belt. One was that he was very, very thin, and he really needed that belt to keep his pants up. The other thing I knew about the belt is that it was a very good quality belt. And I don't know if I said this to my sitter, but I was aware that he came from a family who could afford to buy their 13-year-old. That's the age he was when I was with him, this good quality belt. And I also knew that later on he would use a belt to tie himself off because he was an IV drug user. So there was a lot inside just the belt, the awareness of the belt. So each piece of evidence, if we are able to hold it, sometimes it's coming in so quickly that, we just keep going and going. And that's great. It feels good when that happens. But there's a lot to be said for slowing it down a little bit and pausing with pieces of evidence.
I really have learned that. And one of the things that I do in my life is go fast. I'm on fast pace all the time. And so it's really hard for me to slow down and just kind of, okay, you got one piece of evidence, because like you said, it can mean a lot of different things. But you said something very interesting I want to come back to. somebody can come back at a certain age, is there a reason why they would do, like you said, this person came back at 13, but I'm just going to make this up. They may have passed when they were 20 or 50, but they'll show themselves at a certain age. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Boy, I wish there was a one-size-fits-all answer. I tell you that last night, this young man came through at the age he was, which was when he passed, which was, he just happened to come through at the age he passed, which was in his early 20s. My sitter had lost track of him. And I kept getting no's. And I finally just looked at her and said, when did you know? Well, actually, I didn't ask her. I knew. I said, so this was junior high, right? And she said, yes. And so as soon as I said junior high, he made me aware of who he was and what he felt like and looked like in junior high. So that happened. I honestly am a little bit baffled sometimes when sometimes I think it's vanity. I know it's vanity. Sometimes women will come back when they were 47 and all that, just 47, I look good at 47. I've got things under control. And it's, they're mature, but they're beautiful, especially women, just great age for women. It's vanity, and that's evidential. Everything's evidence. If a spirit communicator comes through and they're very, very quiet, you're like, say it. Oh yeah, this is evidence. Right. Okay, it's evidence. You would understand that your father was very non-communicative. Yes. But as soon as you land the evidence, the spirit communicator will open up and communicate. Usually will open up and communicate in another way.
Yeah. I've had a few of those where I'm trying to pull things and you don't want to pull. I know that, but you're just like, what is going on here? And then all of a sudden I realize, oh, listen to your body. What is going on in your body? What is he showing you? What are you feeling? And go to that place, because they're telling you who they are.
Yeah. That's really good guidance. A lot of times the information will be held that's clairsentience. It's sort of an objective clairsentience as opposed to subjective. But yeah, you'll feel it in your body.
Sorry, I was seeing. Hi, Sharon. We want to know how Susan's day was. Yeah, I hear you on that. That's big. Okay, so sorry, Sharon, you startled me. Now I have to come back to the reality. What would be like for me, I notice there's certain parts of my character, there's certain traits that I have that I'm aware of when I go into a reading that I basically have to kind of put on the back shelf. Let me go back. I wanted to ask this question. I remember what it was now. You touched on, and I just had this happen 2 nights ago. I did a reading, and the person that I was reading for had committed suicide and had all this sadness and heartbreak, and he was sorry for the family and was trying to bring this out. And I knew what happened, but I couldn't say it for people who are mediums that deal with this, because this is something we all struggle with, and how to go about talking about this. And for me, in that particular situation, even though I knew what had happened, I didn't verbalize it at first. I just let him unfold the story. But what advice would you give to mediums that actually are dealing with really touchy subjects like that?
Well, thank you for asking. That's such an important question. We are advised by I think it's the National Association of Suicide Awareness, to use the language died by suicide, not committed suicide, which you and I grew up learning to say committed. Committed is regarded as pejorative, that it implies overt action on the part of the person, and that is not always the case, even though it appears to be. I think it was David Foster Wallace, who's an incredible writer, if anyone knows his work, who died by suicide, ultimately, a terrible struggle with depression. He described the conditions that lead to suicide are that it's that you are being approached, you're in a burning building and your back is up against the wall and you have to make a choice between the fire and the window. And you don't want to do either, but you have to make a choice. And that is certainly my firsthand experience of struggling with depression, that it's not an overt act that we do. It's It's more complex than that. So the first thing I would say is that we should familiarize ourselves with the way journalists are advised to write about suicide.
Good point.
I post this on evidential mediumship on Facebook all the time. Well, not all the time, but I post it every 3 or 4 months. The guidelines for reporting on suicide. That's something you can look up. The other thing is to observe that it's different if you're in a one-on-one reading versus on the platform, as we say, which is that you're standing in front of a room full of 500 people or 30 people or something. I don't think it's appropriate to discuss the method in a room full of people. The person knows how their child passed, or their dad, or whomever it is. I don't think you should go there from the platform. I would say you'll understand that this person is taking responsibility for their own passing. And they know. They don't need to hear it. They know you've got them. You're going to bring forward other evidence. In a one-on-one setting, it's very much in the moment and the connection. When we're reading, there's a current that runs from the medium to the sitter to the spirit world and back, or the other way around, whatever way, maybe both ways simultaneously. But there's a current that connects us all. And I hope that we will feel what the person sitting in front of us needs to hear from us in that time. They know how the person passed. They don't need to hear it. Some of them may. And they may. I've had people ask, do you know how he passed? I've also had the condition where I knew that they passed by suicide and they would not share with me. I couldn't get it. And that was probably not the spirit communicator. I said it was, but I'm sure it was me. It wasn't me. Because some of that information is gruesome and
yeah.
On the other hand, the person knows how they passed and they think about it all the time, and it is very validating if you say it out loud. So you kind of got to know where you are and stay tuned in to who you're reading for. And you can ask them, do you want me to say more about the passing? Sometimes it's really, really important. Oh, this is so heartbreaking. It's so important sometimes for for a parent who found their child to hear the mediums walk them back through those moments as led by the person on the other side. It can be a very crucial part of their healing. So if you are uncertain of the territory, less is more.
Yes.
First, do no harm. This is like medicine here. First, do no harm. It would be my guidance at the end of the day.
And I think that's perfect guidance. You do need to go very carefully and not just speak anything that comes to your mind. You really do need to listen and pay attention and go from the heart and pay care.
It's that tuning. It's that attunement with the person.
Okay, I want to come back to something you said, but I'm going to ask this first. Susan said that when growing up, she grew up spiritually and had experiences that she believed is spirit. I am wondering if it is a gift that I should develop. I'm improvising this. She had her aunt appear before her when she was a child, and also she dreamt of a cousin's death. Dad's voice appeared on the video. Oh, her dad's voice appeared on a video of her dog. She's wondering if she should develop these gifts or if she has any gifts there to develop.
She absolutely has gifts there to develop. Whether she should or not is, do you want to become a world-class chef or a firefighter or a ballerina? I don't know what you want to do with your life. Do you have the ability? Yeah, big time. Let me say this. These abilities I think it's like singing. I think it's like being able to sing. Most of us can, row your boat. We got a little bit of that going on. Most of us can sing a little bit. A small percentage of us are completely tone deaf. I know that most people can develop intuitive skills. There's no question about that. It's right there. It's available to all of us. It's our birthright.
Mm-hmm.
How good we're going to be at it is a different matter. You know, I'm never going to sing on the stage at Carnegie Hall. It's just not going to happen. Never going to happen. So we may not be the very best psychic or medium in the whole wide world, but boy, you don't need to be. It's such a helpful ability to develop, just navigating through the world, becoming better at determining when someone is being untruthful or hiding something, or all that stuff is part of intuition. It's very helpful. But to answer Susan's question, you've had a visitation in your dreams, and you had another clairvoyant. You had a clairvoyant experience. Somebody showed up of objective clairvoyance, showed up in the room, like, as you know. You could see them not with your mind's eye, but with your physical eye. It's very powerful. It's very rare. And you know, these books.
Yes, I was going to say that.
Glenn Smith. Read these books. And, you know, if it speaks to you, if you're called in to play, if it feels like a sandbox, it feels like, oh, this is going to be fun.
Yeah.
Go. That's the green light.
Of course, this is the one who said she's not a medium, and went off on, you know, other things. And then she came up with that question. I just want to point that out, Susan. But I agree with you that, you know, I personally feel that everybody is born with these abilities. Because the one thing that when I first came in, it was like, oh, that person can do this. This is unattainable, tangible for me. I don't, you know, you can't do that. Oh no, this is special. And there are a lot of mediums that put themselves on a pedestal that they have this special gift that only they have. And, you know, that does go on. But my belief is that we all are born with these gifts, but it's what is your purpose in this life? And what are the tools that you need to develop that purpose? That's what I think divides or puts us on different paths in our, you know, in the roads that we choose. So I believe personally that everybody is capable of it. Is everybody going to do it? No. I also love what you said, and Susan kind of alluded to this, is sometimes we're afraid of it because of what we already talked about, something in our past, our belief system or whatever. And it's a matter of just allowing the process to go forward, because literally I was walking one day and I got a tap on the shoulder. It was like, oh, how about this? What do you think? I'm like, yeah. And like you said, it was like, oh, this is intriguing now to me. This is fun now to me. This is like, really, this is amazing. And it still amazes me every time I do a reading that I can sit with somebody who I don't know. I know nothing about their life. I don't really even understand what I'm saying to them. I understand what I'm saying, but I don't understand how it paints this picture, right? I just know I'm getting this information. How this all comes together and makes sense to somebody blows my mind every time.
Yeah, right with you on that.
I can't even wrap my head around it.
Dealing with such a supreme intelligence, it so far transcends our tiny little mountain brains here. You know, we've got everything in black and white, and it's got to be this way or that way, and
I do think we already talked about, if you missed it, go back to the beginning, but we talked about doing your inner work, how important doing that inner work is, because that's going to help you to be a more fine-tuned medium. It's also going to help you to be able to help people that are dealing with issues because I do believe that people come to us that we resonate together. We are on the same vibrational resonance, so we can help each other. And that's, you know, we're not all the same. We're not all cookie cutter people. So it's a matter of being able to find the people that will teach you if you want to learn. I think your teachers will come to you. Look for people, Susan, if you want to kind of dabble in it, for people that you resonate with. Look for people that, you know, you can understand and make sense to you. How did you come across your first teacher?
I would also tell Susan to be skeptical.
Oh, yeah.
Teachers.
Absolutely.
Don't buy everything hook, line, and sinker. Absolutely. There's so much to be said in this work for tolerating ambiguity. Don't expect everything to fit. Don't require things to fit into neat boxes, because it cuts us off from deeper meaning. And be skeptical about the teachers, and just like wait and see. Know that it's going to take years to develop. your
Yeah.
ability, and that you don't want to get locked in a real trying on something. Did you ask how I developed what my development path was?
Who was your first teacher that you worked with?
James.
Oh,
James Frog.
mhm.
I went to a kind of a resort place in Arizona, and
Mhm.
James was there, and he was expecting a much larger group. He was
Okay.
expecting a couple hundred people, and there were 25 of us.
Oh no.
So 25 of us, and most of us are still connected with each other. This was a long time, it was like 15 years ago. Yeah, we had that was the week of mediumship instruction with James, and now
Oh my.
thousands of people in these classes he does.
Yeah, he does.
He was really, really super supportive and super encouraging. And I was in tears half the time, which, by the way, be prepared. There's gonna be some crying.
A lot. Yeah.
And I remember I had tears streaming down my face, and I passed James in a corridor at one point, and I said, "Where do I go from here?" I was just kind of blown away. And he said, "Mavis Patilla," and kept on walking. And I'm like, "What's a Mavis Patilla?" I had no idea who she was, but she's sort of the grande dame leadership. And I did a mentorship. Mavis's first. Actually, I was working with another medium, a really lovely woman named Allison Gannon, who I also took a class from, and then sort of a little bit of work in partnership with Allison, and we brought Mavis to the United States.
I missed that one.
That was a long time ago. Well,
yeah, but I heard about that. The other thing is, do you think that there's only one teacher that you would come in contact with or work with in your life? Which you already said no, but I wanted you to talk a little more about the fact that we could have many different teachers.
We can have different teachers, but it's important to know that this takes, think about if you're in college and you're going to take, how many courses are you going to take in a semester? Are you going to take 14? No. Realize that this is serious work that is going to take a serious amount of time. James told me, and at the time I remember being horrified, he said, "You need to spend 5 years in development circle before you even think about doing readings for the public." And I thought, 5 years? Well, he was right. And a development circle, if that's a new term, is practice mediumship, where you meet weekly for years with the same group of people. And new people sort of come and go. You need new people because you run out of spirits after a while. Everybody. But they do teach us in these circles. They teach us extraordinary things in circles. So anyway, that's one thing. Be aware that it's a serious endeavor, a serious field of study that merits your full participation and full intellectual and emotional development and everything. You can have more than one. You will have more than one teacher. But I recently saw somebody who had like 5. She was in courses with like 5 different AFC tutors in the same 6-month period, plus others. And there's going to be contradiction that you can't reconcile. And it isn't that the contradiction means this teacher is bad. It means that you may not have the depth of development that you can hold some of these ideas in your head in the way they need to be held in order to be effective. So don't feel like more teaching faster is better. That's a mistake that can be made, and now you don't have to make it. Also, it's an expensive mistake because these people cost a lot of money.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, but need not, but they tend to.
It does get to be expensive, especially if you're doing a mentorship type program. It gets to be, quite high. And I agree with you. You have to understand that everybody has their own way of doing things. You have to work with the people that work with you. But I also believe that we kind of take from that person the things that work for us, because we're all different and we all work in different ways. So we're going to see things in a little bit of a different way. Interesting what you said about development circles. Andy was saying the other day, Andy Being was saying the other day, that he sat in a development circle with 3 other ladies for 3 years.
Yeah.
The same group sat, and he said it always amazed them how they would come up with new information every week. They would come up with new information. And the thing that he learned in that process was to expand even more. Yeah. And he is, if you want to see an amazing medium, go on YouTube and look at some of Andy Being's work. He can give you details like nobody's business. He's amazing. So
it's Bing, B-Y-N-G.
Yeah, B-Y-N-G. And he also is from Arthur Finley School as well. He teaches there, or he's a tutor there. Mm-hmm. Susan brought up a very hot topic for me, and then I was going to ask you another question. We'll see how much time we have. But this is really an important question because a lot of people get stuck here. And this is a belief system, I believe, that we get stuck here. But she's saying where to start is the most difficult. Meditation is where I have started. Implying like meditation is difficult is I'm putting that 2 cents in there. It is an important part of development, is to be able to sit in your power. What do you think is the biggest hang up that people have with meditation and why they can't get past that?
Well, I think meditation and sitting in the power are 2 completely different and unrelated practices. Mm-hmm. Meditation, first of all, people, and when I say people, I of course mean me. When I first started meditating, we expect meditation to be, for the first decade or so of trying to meditate, Spalding Gray said, "I've circled my meditation cushion for decades." Bless his soul. And that is true. A lot of us just keep trying to do it, and you just can't sit down. Yeah. We expect the wrong thing from it. Here it is. It's a practice. Mm-hmm. Okay? Mm-hmm. There's not a particular, there can be a point of arrival. Mm-hmm. That point of arrival turns out to be yet another point of departure. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking about states of awareness when I say there is a point of arrival, but don't expect to get there. The importance of the practice is not any point of arrival. The importance of the meditation practice is that it's a mental calisthenic to quiet the mind.
Exclamation point. We always get off on that, but I want people to breathe there because that is an important statement.
It's hard. I mean, it's a hen party in here. Am I right? It's, you've seen this. You've seen 25 more women in here. And they're all going. So that girl quieted down is some work, let me tell you. So it takes me 25 minutes just to get everybody quiet. And you can't go in forcefully. You have to. Right. So that's number one. It's practice. It's a calisthenic to learn to quiet the mind. Mm-hmm. The number one asset, and the reason people talk about breath work and they never tell you why, breath work is the physiological tool we use to engage the hang on, sorry, I just lost the word, the relaxation response. Mm-hmm. Relaxation response is what the medical community calls the lower level of corticosteroids in our blood. Those are the stress hormones. When we meditate, when we breathe belly breaths, when we breathe into our deep belly and your belly goes out, you're not, so let me back up. I'm using my chest to breathe.
Exactly.
Okay. That's the way you breathe when a tiger's chasing you. Mm-hmm. If you're recruiting chest muscles to breathe, you're saying to your body, look out, there's trouble. We don't want that. That's not going to get us where we want to go.
Yeah.
Belly breathing is what tells our body, look, watch a baby sleep. Mm-hmm. You want to know how to meditate? Watch a baby sleep. Mm-hmm. Watch their breathing structure when they're asleep. That's what you want to do when you're meditating. All we're trying to do is quiet everything down and feel peaceful. That's it. And that's a tall flipping order. So it's belly breath. It's generally in through the nose and out through the nose. They're not necessarily, if it's hard and you've got blockage, it's optimal. Mm-hmm. It is also giving the mind something to do, which is why we have a mantra. If you give the mind a mantra to repeat, it won't start making grocery lists.
Mm-hmm.
We tend to travel through some predictable. Do I have time to go into my whole meditation thing? I don't want to run.
We do. I want to talk about it. So it's my show. I can do what I want.
Okay. I can't, I'm not going to get this exactly right. I've got this little essay that I post periodically about it, but we tend to travel through the following villages on the way of our expectation that we're going somewhere with meditation. We sit down, and first there's a lot of wiggling and scratching and, I should get up. Oh, no, I'm meditating now. Oh yeah, breathing. And so then we eventually get to a place where we're about halfway doing the breathing work, right? Okay, I'm doing my belly breathing. I'm doing my belly breathing. Belly. That makes me think about bacon. I've got to get bacon at the grocery store. And when I go, I've got to put gas in the car. I've got to go to the grocery store. Put gas in. I stop by the bank. So there's list making. It's a very predictable phase. Here's what we do. And this teaching comes from the wonderful Jack Kornfield, who wrote a book called A Path with Heart. Mm-hmm. Very helpful book for learning meditation. Jack says that when we notice our minds list making, we don't scream at God, you're making a list again. It's in the same way that you wouldn't roll up a newspaper and smack a puppy. You would gently bring the puppy back and go, come back over here, puppy. That's a good puppy. That's how we want to talk to ourselves internally. Right. Oh, look at that list making. Okay, I'm finished with list making. And go back to the mantra and the belly breath. And when you get on top of list making, and it might take you 3 years or 15 minutes, then you're going to come through Itchyville. It's just, God, I can't go further until I can't, something somewhere is going to itch.
Yep.
You can scratch it or not. You can breathe through. Sometimes you got to scratch. You can also work with Itchyville and use your breath to be in the presence of that itch, and not scratch. And if you do that, the next village up is generally Sleepyville. Oh, God, I don't think I slept enough last night. And you're just gonna feel yourself out. You're gonna fall asleep, right? Oh my God, what's going on? Oh, I'm sleepy. I'm in Sleepyville. I really have to put my attention on my breathing now. I want to I know if I breathe and keep my attention here and say my mantra, I'll get through Sleepyville. And you do.
Yeah.
And then after Sleepyville, let's see, we've gone through Itchyville, list making, Sleepyville. There's beware of people who tell you. I say, beware of teaching that tells you to place your attention in your third eye. Because for some of us, it's like the 4th of July. Whoa, right? It's so visual. It's like so visual distractionville, right? It's just, oh my gosh, look at all this stuff. Well, this is fabulous. This must be what everyone's talking about. It isn't. It's visual distractionville. Bring your attention back to your breath. Bring your mind back to your mantra gently. And stay there. And 99,999,900 times out of a million, whatever, that's where as far as you get. And that's good. Because every step along that journey, every recognition, every gentle reorientation back to the task of belly breathing and mantra strengthens our meditation practice. And that strengthens our mediumship. So I find myself in the odd position of arguing against ambition when it comes to meditation. Be aware that it's practice. It's called practice for a reason. It's not about attainment. It's very non-Western in that way. And I think the calisthenic thing is a helpful way to think about it.
I'm glad you said that, because I was going to reiterate that. It's not about getting to the end result. It's about what you learn as you're going through it. That it's a practice of learning. And basically, it's learning of who you are. And like you said, it's the calisthenics of your mind. It's controlling your mind and knowing how your mind works and being okay with it and being kind with it. It's not about beating yourself up and having to achieve. Like, I think one of the things that we see a lot in the teachings is that people have these agendas. Like, you have your checklist in mediumship. It's like they have their checklist in meditation. You have to do these things or forget it. Throw it out with the bad water. It doesn't matter. And that's not really what meditation is about. It breaks my heart when I hear people say, I can't meditate, or my brain or my mind or my body is too fast moving to be able to meditate. And I'm thinking, you're the one who needs to be meditating.
Yeah, it's worth doing a little bit of research on that term, relaxation response. There's a doctor, well, she started out as a researcher at Harvard. Her name is Dr. Alice Domar, Ali Domar, as she became known because Oprah found her. And you know what happens when Oprah puts the spotlight on you, it changes your life. But before she got Oprahized, Dr. Ali Domar was doing research on the relaxation response with AIDS patients, cancer patients, and infertility patients at Harvard. And her work is hugely important in understanding meditation and the relaxation response from a medical point of view. And there's something about looking at it through that lens that takes away all this other stuff. It's really just as simple as I'm going to have this ability to quiet my mind because it's good for my body. It's good for my life to quiet my mind. And oh, by the way, it's also good for your mediumship or your psychic abilities if that's something. But it's a very neutral, like I hear people saying, oh, I had those fabulous insight in my meditation today. I don't know what you're doing, but you weren't meditating. You know?
Oh yes, it's a funny road. Meditation and people, seriously, along my path, it's really a funny combination. It cracks me up. But
I mean, the good thing is there's no way to, you know, it's just sitting quietly is always going to be a bonus. So have a low bar.
So you said something though that's really important. I'm so sorry we're going over, you guys, but we're going over. And do you mind talking a few more minutes?
No, I'm honored. I love talking to you.
You're so sweet. I enjoy talking to you. Oh my God, I learned so much. You said that there's a difference between meditation, and I just want to come back and revisit this because people are probably wondering what you're talking about, and sitting in the power.
Right. So sitting in the power or sitting in the presence is an awareness practice used in the spiritualist church. And I'm not a spiritualist. I'm not a joiner, but I follow very closely the spiritualist practices for mediumship because it's smart. Sitting in the power or sitting in the presence is a tool used in mediumship to further develop our metaphysical understanding and our ability to link with the spirit world deeply and for a sustained amount of time. And and so you can imagine how useful meditation, a base layer of meditation practice is. Like ideally, you will have had several years of trying. You're circling your meditation cushion, and that counts. You're thinking about it. You're trying to get there before trying to sit in the power. Sitting in the power is shifting. First of all, I approach it as I do with meditation. I get in my chair over here in the corner that's winged back and super cozy, and I slow down my breathing, and I bring my awareness into the present moment as much as is possible. And then I shift my awareness to the spirit realm. Well, how do you do that if you've never done it before? Ideally, you will have made a link with a spirit communicator before trying this. I'm not sure. In fact, I think it's not good to do it before you've made a link or 2 or 3 or 20, because you kind of got it. That's that link. That first time that you bring evidence through, it's like, oh, what's going on, everybody? I feel cold on the left-hand side of my body. That's my Colleen. That's my clairsentient signal that spirit is giving me. Some people will feel pressure on the top of their head, or some people will feel tingling. Other people will just straight up see a spirit communicator, either with their mind's eye or physically in the room, or as I said, they will hear clairaudiently a voice speaking to them. Having had those experiences of communication with the presence of someone in the other realm is sort of the little trail of breadcrumbs you need to have in place before you try this awareness practice we call sitting in the power or sitting in the presence.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have that breadcrumb trail that you've walked down a few times, you don't really know where you're going.
Mm-hmm.
Then the mind gets involved, and the next thing you know, we're channeling some stupid thing. So anyway, that's my guidance on sitting in power, sitting in the presence.
I loved your guidance on that. It was very good, and yeah, it was very funny. Won't go there. So, Susan, you're full of really, really good questions. Thank you. And this will be the last question because we can't go on all night. But she was asking about why, when she does that she feels pressure in her eyes and the top of her head. And you kind of talked on it, but there's other reasons that you could feel the pressure at the top of your head as well.
When she does that, when she tries to meditate?
When she's meditating. Mm-hmm.
And if that is pressure that occurs when meditating and only when meditating, then I would suggest the only way through it is through it. You need to continue to breathe and bring your attention back. For you, that's going to be your itchyville, thoughtville, list-making-ville, visual distraction-ville. For you is showing up in this clairsentient or clear feeling way. You're feeling pressure. That's sensation, feeling thing. You're going to need to acknowledge it. Oh, there it is. Okay, I feel you. And just be present with it. Mm-hmm. I wish there were cute things you could do, and somebody might tell you to burn Palo Santo or something. It'll make it go away. Maybe it will.
Hey! I love Palo Santo.
I do too. I have it right here. I'm not bad nothing Palo Santo. I love it.
But I get what you're saying. Yes, if there was some.
It's like faith will move mountains, but you better bring a shovel. It's the same kind of thing. You just need to be present with it. And Susan, hang on a second. I just want to kind of be present with this for a minute. I would also, if I'm not saying Susan has this going on, but I would wonder what was going on in life that was creating a certain amount of where in life there are things going on that feel like your attention is being directed somewhere that you don't want to look. For me, that would be paying bills. I don't like paying bills. It's my least favorite thing to do. It can, those sorts of physical symptoms in our bodies as we go into meditation can be representative of things in our physical normal lives that are not getting the attention they require.
That's a
possibility. Possibility. Other people will tell you, and I'll just mention this because who knows, other people will tell you that you should say, acknowledge that sensation and say, I feel that pressure. Can you please make it lighter?
Yeah.
And you can have that conversation and just see what happens, because people will tell you that that's a communication from your guide and you need to acknowledge it and then it will change. And that's possible. I find it a little bit unusual for somebody who's just starting out to have that overt of a communication from a guide, but it can happen. So know that is within your, it's your right. Say, that's a bit, I feel it. It's a bit much. Can you back it off a little bit? So try that too.
For me, and I appreciate what you said, the only thing that I would caveat to that from my experience is that I feel like Susan already has a connection, and I feel like she's more open to it than what she probably feels or knows that she is. But for me, when I started, I get the pressure in my head and I get the pressure in my forehead. And what I would do is say, I think at the beginning would be just, you just not ignore it, but you just acknowledge it and move on. Like it's a part of what you're doing. Because again, like you said, it's that, focusing on it is going to take your attention away from what you're doing. But now that I've been working in mediumship, that is the way that I know that spirit is connecting with me. So I would just kind of use it and work through it. Like Colleen said, work through it. Don't attach to it when you're in meditation. Just let it flow through you, breathe through it. But be aware of it, because it could be the way that communicators are going to work with you. So I'll throw that out there for the maybes as well. Just because I get that. I start it from my head and it just works like, woof. like
I
grabbing.
think that's really good guidance for Susan.
Yeah. Yeah. So you get through it though, and I think the other thing is, and one of the problems that I've had through my journey is I know it's possible and I can see and feel what's possible, but I get in my own way. So I get frustrated with it at the same time. And you forget to enjoy the journey because this is not only is this teaching the person that you're communicating to and the communicator for, but you're learning as well. So this is like you said earlier, it's a triangle. We are learning together in this triangle and we're helping each other. And we agreed upon, taking this time to do that. So
yeah,
it's a beautiful experience, I have to say.
It's a lot of fun. Bring your sense of humor, bring
Yeah.
your patience, bring your heart. Bring your heart.
Yes, bring your heart. Well, thank you everybody for being here. I can think that you are going to have huge changes, Susan. Reach out if you have any questions, just reach out. We're here, and Colleen has been doing this much longer than I have and is so talented at what she does and beautiful. I'm going to call you. Thank you, teacher. You were a great teacher today.
Oh, Anne.
I'll agree. So reach out if you have any questions, Susan. That's what we're here. Anybody, if you have any questions, please reach out. But thank you, Colleen, so much for your time and your wisdom and your help in this. I mean, we covered both sides of the spectrum, I think, pretty well, didn't we? Do you think?
I think so. It feels like we rambled all over. I bloviated all over the place. You gave me a lot of rope. Hope I didn't tangle myself up too bad in it. You're very generous, Joanne. Thank you so much. I'm happy to talk. I love talking to you.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you.
Yeah, cool.
It's been fun. And you guys have been great watching. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, please put it down there. We will follow up with that. I will follow up with that. And everybody have an amazing night. And thank you for sharing this time with us. Bye.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.